Okay guys, we're going to run through an upper body mobility session. The reason it's mostly upper body is because I'm a little bit sick, and if I do a lot of lower body work today, it's really going to take it out of me. So my purpose of today's workout is to do some work, not so much I make myself more sick. So this is like a recovery almost workout for myself. So we're going to start with my buddy, the foam roller. I don't tend to foam roll a lot, but because again, I'm sick, there's a lot of tension around my ribs, my rib cage, thoracic spine, and when it comes to your thoracic spine, like that thing needs to move properly for you to be able to do a lot of upper body work. So all I'm doing now, that section of my rib cage, so not on my lower back, I'm on one side slightly, so I'm around my shoulder blade, I'm going over the ribs, I'm gonna go around the other side, I'm gonna do the same thing, and I don't need to spend hours down here on the foam roller. I see so many people in gyms spending like 30 minutes foam rolling themselves. You really only need a short period of time foam rolling. Now I just want to work on some thoracic extension. I'm going to set the foam roller just below my shoulder blades, so like the bottom border of my shoulder blades. Grab around my head, try to pull my elbows back as far as possible, and now I want to reach around the foam roller. So ideally what I'd be like is like a snake curling around a ball here. So I'm looking as far around as possible. I'm pulling my elbows as far around as possible, trying to get a little bit of thoracic extension just to help my overhead position. Now we're going to come to one side. Never roll into your armpit, okay? So there's some lymph glands in your armpit. You don't want to crush those. That's actually possible to do. But I want to get into my lat here. I'm going to get up under the bottom of my delt as well. There's some rotator cuff stuff in there I want to hit. And I can roll forward and do serratus and like the front outer side of my ribs. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Hit my lat, so arm goes out straight. Get in under the shoulder, hit the rotator cuff, get the lat, and I can roll forward and get serratus and a little bit of other stuff. And last little bit with legs, I'm going to hit hamstrings. Hamstrings are always a problem for me, thanks to a surgery I had, particularly on this side. So I just need to loosen them off a bit. I'm going to come around to this side, hit ITB as well. And you'll find with foam rolling, I don't actually need to roll necessarily. So right here, that is the toughest spot in my leg. I can actually just sit there and hang out on it for a little bit, wait for it to release. Then I'm going to kind of knead the muscle a little bit with the foam roller. And then the same on the other side. Leg goes straight. I can get more or less weight on it, depending on where I put my foot. Find that gnarliest spot in my leg. And actually this side's way better than the other side. I found a good spot there, so just hang out for a little bit. And then knead it around again. And now I've got that part of my body ready to go. So in a warm-up, we need to get warm. It's actually a really warm day. Melbourne's heated up very quickly in the last week. I don't need to do any actual warm-up to bring my body temperature up today. It's already up. Then we want tissue quality. So the foam roller comes in there, and now we actually need to get some movement happening. So starting off, good old cat camel. Exhale as you crunch yourself. Inhale as you open up and look up. I'm just going to get some of those. And then a few shoulder rolls in each direction. So 3, 4, 5, and go the other way. And all I'm doing is making sure my shoulder blades are actually free to move properly. They're a really important part of the upper back puzzle. From here, I need to make sure my hands are warmed up. I'm just going to flip my fingers around, turn my fingers back towards my knees, turn my toes back towards my knees. Just hang out here for a little bit. You'll find with forearm flexibility, so a lot of office workers obviously tend to be in this kind of posture, a lot with keyboards. Can be really uncomfortable for people, even with basic exercises like push-ups. So you're definitely going to need to learn to stretch your forearms out a little bit. Now in this position here, I call these Spider-Mans, you know, like Spider-Man shooting his web. I'm going to roll back up on my fingers and actually stretch my fingers out a little bit too, because your fingers also can get quite tight. I do a lot of grip related stuff. I do a lot of rock climbing. My fingers and my forearms do get quite tight. And they're starting to feel pretty good. Last one, I'm just gonna do a couple of little rotations here to get my wrists working properly. All right, now from here we're ready to go. I'm gonna step forward into this big lunge position, just hang out here for a little bit. Hip flexors get very tight in people, so we sit down all day long. A lot of endurance activities, cycling, riding and rowing in particular, really hit the hip flexors quite a lot. If you actually want your glutes to work properly, it's a combination between muscle activation here and almost muscle deactivation at the hip. So if you think about hip extension, I've got a hip flexion component here with a tight hip flexor. So I need to relax that so that I can actually hip extend properly. Now from here, whatever you need to do to grab that foot, if your hamstrings work really well and your quads aren't very stiff, you'll be able to kick your foot up into your hand. I need to swivel around a little bit so I can grab hold of that foot. Then we need to come up to this tall position here so I can actually stretch my quad out. I can lean forward into it and get more quad as well. Whoop. The reason we need these guys let go, again, if I want to do a hip extension activity like kettlebell swings, deadlifts, or even some kind of jumping, I need to make sure these are deactivated enough that my glutes can express their power properly. Now, let's make this more interesting. Plant my hand, extend my leg. I'm going to take this elbow and try to put my elbow on the ground. So this is now a deep hip stretch. You might find this in the front hip of your extended leg. You might find it on the inside of your bent leg. Doesn't really matter where you find it. You just need to get to the point where you're working to get that elbow to the ground. Again, people much more flexible than me will find this no problem at all. This is very challenging for me to be in this position. And now from here, we're just going to put that leg down so we can make this a little bit easier for ourselves. Our T-spine needs to work properly so that we can get a good overhead upper body position. So I'm going to put myself into external rotation and I'm going to open up and do a couple of reps here. When you are opening, so I'm focusing on this elbow going up, I'm pushing into the ground with my opposite hand. So it's a reciprocal pattern. I've got pulling on one side, pulling around with my shoulder blade, lifting the elbow while pushing down on the other side. I'm going to do the same thing, but now I'm in internal rotation. So hand goes up behind your back, drive down into the ground, pull around with your shoulder blade. Don't focus on using your torso to pull yourself around. Focus on the pull coming from the shoulder blade to really open the upper body up and get the T-spine working properly. And one more. And then when you go back to the other side, I'm going to go kneeling hip flexor stretch. Same thing. Just hang out here and relax. You'll generally find as you breathe, so I'm a little bit breathless because I'm talking at the same time, but if I'm concentrating on my breathing, you'll actually find you'll do a series of inhalations and exhalations, and eventually you'll see after a few exhalations, your body will drop more naturally into the stretch. So important to keep breathing nice, deep diaphragmatic breaths. They allow you to relax. There we go. Then I'm going to swivel my foot. This is my bad side. My hamstring is particularly reactive on this side, so fair chance I'm going to cramp in the hamstring while I'm doing this. You can actually see my quad. I can't even grab my foot. With my other hand, there we go. Pretty much takes all my concentration to be in this position on this side. If you're looking closely, you'll definitely see a difference. If you see here, my hip is not even extended on this side. That's how tight I am through the quad and the hip on my right-hand side because it's lacking some stability thanks to the damage to my hamstring. And that's just something I need to always work on. So now I'm going to plant that hand, extend the back leg, try to drop that elbow to the ground. And again, people who are really flexible, quite envious. If you want to make this better for yourself, you could grab a yoga block so you could actually put weight on the yoga block. You'll actually find you'll be more likely to gain flexibility when your body senses that you're more stable. So propping yourself on a yoga block here and allowing yourself to actually use that for support is better than what I'm doing here, where I've got really not very much weight on my hand at all. I can't put my elbow on anything at all. So now we go hand on head, open up, pull around with the shoulder blade, push away with my bottom hand. And then one more. And then we're going to do the same with internal rotation. And then one more. 5. From here, I'm going to sink back into child's pose. Ideally, your hips are going to be nice and loose. You'll be able to sit your butt on your calves. I'm going to reach forward as much as possible. Then I'm just going to walk my hands over to the left. I'm going to grab hold of my right hand with my left. So my right hand is underneath, my left hand is on top. I'm putting a lot of pressure down. And what I'm really trying to do is stretch this lat on this side. So you should feel a little stretch beneath the shoulder into the lat. Just hang out here for a moment. And then we're going to go back, do the same on the other side. Left hand goes underneath, right hand goes on top. Actually, for me on this side is a more intense stretch. So just a good indication of how asymmetrical the body really can be. And then we're going to go into this thing called puppy pose. So puppy pose, you're going to tense your fingers, drive your chest down towards the floor. So my goal here is more about how close I can get my nose and my chest to the floor. What you really should see would be that my chest would be on the ground, my butt would be up in the air. I'd have a ton of thoracic extension, and that would obviously be really helpful for my overhead position for things like presses and pull-ups. So focus on pushing the chest to the floor, extend the spine as much as possible, push the chest to the floor, allow it to sink in and collapse, extend, make the spine long, drop the chest to the floor, just over and over, extend the spine as much as possible, focus on push the chest through, and then just back to child's pose. One last thing we're going to do down dog. Most people don't actually understand what down dog is all about. They think it's about having your hands on the ground and your feet on the ground and being in kind of a triangle position. And that is part of it. But the goal of down dog is actually thoracic extension. So here is my paw down dog. You see my head is in front of my hands. What I want to do, I want to bend my legs and again, push my chest to the floor, make my chest come through my hands. Think about your overhead position for everything you're going to do in a workout. I want to drive my chest and my head through between my arms as much as possible. And then we're actually going to extend the legs, get a bit of a hamstring and calf stretch, come back to that focus on the T-spine extension and our good overhead position. Extend the legs, hang out there. One more, focus on pushing the T-spine through. And one last down dog before coming into up dog. So I'm going to flip my feet over, tops of my feet on the ground, focus on push hips through, pull hips through. So I'm pulling my hands back towards my body, shrug my shoulders down, extend my spine as much as possible. And then we're ready to go train upper body. Don't forget, if you like the content, make sure to hit like and subscribe, and go check out the Peak Performance community via my website, where there's tons more information on training and a community of guys just like you looking to get the most out of their health and fitness.